He grabs Cup and throws him at Impactor, taking him out completely.
Now for a lesson. You may have heard these words before, but I'll teach you what they really mean. Go beyond! Plus!
The cliffhanger we thought we would forever be left on. The sequel we thought we would never get. It's here. It is finally here. Transformers Shattered Glass is back. This is IDW's final Transformer series. Okay, so before we get started, for those of you new here, I have a playlist of the previous series in the description box below, or you should see a card pop up right here. Eventually, at some point, I want to remaster those videos because I feel like I can improve on them. Let me know in the comments below if you guys would like that. With that being said, let's get right into it. So this first issue is so freaking good. Oh my god. One of my critiques of this issue though is that it doesn't do flashbacks as well as Last Spot Standing. To be specific, there's like no separation in the artwork to help you identify what's a flashback and what's present day, and it is a little jarring. So I'm going to do all the flashbacks in order and then go into the present day. So the issue opens sometime before the Great War. We see Senator Shockwave coming to speak to his friend Ultra Magnus. Now remember, back in issue 2 of Shattered Glass, Megatron accused Orion of using his secret police to remove Shockwave from power and went as far as performing Imperata on him. And for those of you who don't know what Imperata is, it's a form of punishment done to criminals that removes their heads and hands and install new faceless and fingerless replacements, so everyone knows to shun them. In this issue, we're going to learn how that happened and who's Orion's secret police. Now, in this Shattered Glass reality, Ultra Magnus is more bureaucrat than a soldier. Shockwave is confronting Magnus about his relationship with Orion Pax, who he has been legally advising. Shockwave mentions that his advice has been helping Orion abuse and manipulate the system, and he fears that he's being used. Ultra Magnus points out that they are using his expertise, that it's meant to be used, and he feels insulted that Shockwave believes he would encourage breaking their laws. Suddenly, Bumblebee enters the room, interrupting their conversation, bringing a message from Orion, and that pretty much ends this discussion between Shockwave and Magnus. But I want to point this out, I want to mention this. So I want you to think of Magnus as the brains behind Orion's power play to slowly take over Cybertron, because that's going to become more and more clear as this story progresses. Some time passes, and with the help of Magnus, Orion's power and influence have grown on Cybertron. We go to a meeting between the two where Orion is promoting Magnus as leader of his secret squad. And this squad was actually created by Ultra Magnus himself at some point in time. It's safe to assume that as the time has passed, they've already carried out some dirty work for Orion. Though it is a promotion, Magnus is hesitant to accept it because he's a bureaucrat, not a soldier, and suggests Prowl be given this role. However, Orion argues that he is the only bot qualified, since he knows the limits of what this squad can do in public, and he wants Prowl right where he can see him. When Magnus chimes in that the law isn't a game of limits, this is where Orion breaks Magnus's facade of an innocent bot that he's been putting on. Orion tells him that he's too smart to pretend that he didn't know what he was doing, to admit to himself that he was fascinated by puzzling out how to break the laws and the power that came with it. He grabs Magnus's head, brushing through his hologram, saying, "You're going to break that hologram you love to wear so much from stress." Now, if you're wondering what's behind this hologram, you'll learn that in a bit. It's safe to assume you guys already know. But anyways, in the meantime, we see the members of Magnus's squad: Impactor, Slicer, Cup, Bumblebee, and Springer. I really like Cup's design here and how badass he looks with the cigar. He always has to have a cigar. After a short time, we see Senator Shockwave being asked by the press, Laserbeak, and Flashback about a division in the military going on, until they get scared away by Magnus's squad. Shockwave disapproves of this, and he confronts Magnus about it, and his squad is quick to anger. Magnus tries to calm them down by saying Shockwave is a friend, but Shockwave tells him he thought he was a friend until he became leader of Orion's band of rabid Death Eagles. Impactor gets pissed and goes after Shockwave. Magnus orders him to stop, but he doesn't listen. He even grabs the arm of Shockwave until Shockwave wrings himself free. As Magnus tries to continue to stop this confrontation before it escalates further, Cup starts mocking him, telling Magnus that he can't think of a law to get himself out of this situation and should do something already. The huge amount of pressure Magnus feels begins to break his hologram, revealing his true face. He grabs Cup and throws him at Impactor, taking him out completely. After the situation de-escalates, Shockwave asks Magnus if he was incapable of stopping Impactor, or was he just too cowardly to admit he never wanted to stop him. Slicer then asks Magnus about what to do with Impactor. Magnus answers to leave him and that he'll be making some changes. Dude, I absolutely love Magnus's skull-faced look. It is badass. He just looks menacing and terrifying. Later we go to a confrontation between Orion and Magnus. Orion is pissed at Magnus for dismissing Impactor from his squad. So this shows that Orion's so-called promotion was just BS. He wanted Ultra Magnus to just be the face of his death squad. Ultra Magnus tells Orion that he's not the official leader of the squad. According to all the paperwork, he is the leader, the one they must follow, and it's within his right to dismiss anyone who is insubordinate and unwilling to compromise. He assures Orion that he and his newly christened Wreckers remain loyal to his cause, and that if he has any doubts, let them prove it. Surprised by Magnus's unflinching attitude, Orion begrudgingly agrees with him and gives him a mission to prove his loyalty, which is an all-out assault on the Senate. And that's where we go to next. Ultra Magnus with his Wreckers and new member Jazz taking out the entire Senate. Magnus rips apart Senator Ratbat as he calls out for Shockwave to show himself. When Shockwave appears, Ultra Magnus lays the beat down on him. Magnus tells Shockwave to stop struggling, that he's not a fighter. Shockwave is shocked at the fact that Ultra Magnus is capable of doing this, and he tries to remind Magnus of the honorable bot he used to be and can still be again. But Magnus just toys with Shockwave, showing the hologram of the Magnus he knows. He ends Shockwave's pleas with a fist to the face. We then see Ultra Magnus carrying a mangled, heavily damaged Shockwave on his shoulder while saying, once they perform in Prorata, you won't be upset by this anymore. Honestly, I think I'm jealous. Now that's the end of the flashbacks. We then go to present day, sometime after Goldbug lost Gold City to Megatron and his Decepticons, but was able to use the information encoded in Starscream's Spark to wake Metroplex. We see Ultra Magnus with his Wreckers, who have gone through a roster change, arriving at the throne of Pax. I love this Wreckers roster. He has even more heavy hitters: Rodimus, Drift, Sandstorm, and Ricochet. Orion's guards, Whirl and Sunstreaker, aren't allowing them to go through. I love Magnus's threat to them. He says, if you don't allow us to pass, the only kindness you will ever know is picking which Wreckers will grind you down to powder. When they try to cite the law to Magnus, he becomes furious and grabs Whirl and tells them that he wrote the laws and they did away with them a long time ago anyways. Now, one thing I want to point out that might be confusing is they call Orion Optimus now, but we haven't seen any evidence that he received the Matrix of Leadership, so I don't know why they're referring to him as Optimus, but I'll just call him that from now on. Optimus calls Sunstreaker and tells him to allow Magnus through, but he can only bring one of the Wreckers with him. And I like that the Wreckers are so fiercely loyal to him, not wanting to let him go in alone, but he assures them that it will be okay. Once Jazz and Ultra Magnus enter Optimus's throne room, Magnus informs Optimus about the Decepticons taking over Gold City and building an army. He understands the significance of Metroplex awakening, but warns him that he and Prowl shouldn't ignore the Decepticons. Optimus gets annoyed here, asking Magnus if he is suggesting he should be afraid. And what Optimus says next shows just how arrogant he has become. And honestly, rightfully so. This guy defeated the Decepticons on Cybertron, finished them off on Earth, fought Goldbug one-on-one, and sent him running. None of the warlords have dared to invade his territory in all this time, so it's understandable why he is the way he is. He tells Magnus that the Decepticons are pests and nothing more, and mentions that they were only able to take Gold City because Goldbug hasn't been good for anything except picking bots out of his wheels. He ends up laughing off Magnus's warning, and this gets Jazz really frustrated, to the point that he yells at Optimus, pointing out that every time one of the warlords haven't listened to Magnus, they've lost the battle, and reminds Optimus he wouldn't have gotten this city or won the war if it wasn't for Magnus and the Wreckers. Suddenly Optimus comes up and just backhands Jazz, yelling enough, and he tells Magnus that he thought he had better control of his men. Okay, stop what you're doing and pay attention because it's about to get real. It's about to go down. After leaving the throne room, Magnus informs Jazz that Optimus's plan is just to have the Wreckers and his men fight everyone, basically. Prowl, Goldbug, and his Titan, and the Decepticons. When Jazz scoffs off at the idea, Magnus says, "You may be right. What good is one of Optimus's plans without me to work it?" Fortunately, I was prepared for exactly this. Jazz, give the word. Magnus then rips the head off one of the guards. Jazz takes out the other guard and says, wreck and ruin. As Ultra Magnus enters back into Optimus's fortress, the wreckers are taking out, or should I say, wrecking all of Orion's forces. Oh my god, this is awesome. When Magnus enters the throne room, he says, on second thought, perhaps I didn't explain myself clearly, Orion. Optimus starts to beat down Magnus while saying, you're supposed to be the brains, but your arrogance has fried your circuitry. I shouldn't have to remind you of your place. I allowed you your wreckers. I granted your position. As Optimus is about to land another blow, Magnus stops him by grabbing his fist and breaking his arm. Furious and enraged, he says, I am the source of your authority, fool. I created your army and I gave you the Senate. Magnus turns into his alt form as Optimus tries to run away. Magnus then rams him from behind right through his throne as Optimus yells no. When Optimus tries to get to his feet, Magnus stomps and crushes his chest while asking, how does it feel to have been right about me this whole time? If Shockwave saw this, he'd feel your pain. In his inner monologue, Magnus says, none of you will be privileged to the inner workings of my mind, but rest assured, you will see me execute my plans. That is the end of Shattered Glass 2 issue 1. Oh my god, Ultra Magnus is ruthless and I love it. I'm so hyped for the next issue and we won't have to wait long. It's dropping at the end of this month. Oh man, and I gotta tell you guys this, the cover for the next issue has Blaster and my boy, Heroic Soundwave going one-on-one. Oh man, I really can't wait. With that being said, Beyonders, hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel if you are new here. Have a fantastic day, and always remember every day to transform and go beyond. See you later.